Let's go to Cal, finishing up the regular season today. The Golden Bears hosted UCLA. This is a disappointing season for both teams because they both came in at 4-7. And is it intern Kelsey somewhere out there amongst the crazies? Is that Kelsey? What are you doing out there? It's cold. It's rainy. 9-0 Cal, 3rd and 18. That is Davis Webb to Chad Hansen for 26 yards down the sideline. Hansen becoming the second quarterback in school history to throw for 4,000 yards in the season. Actually, that was Webb, and they settled for a field goal. And then Mike Faithful to Richmond, California's own Kenneth Walker III. Incredible leaping catch for a 7-yard touchdown to make this a 12-7 game. And Cal would answer Davis Webb to his favorite target, Hansen. Who knows what kind of numbers he would have put up if he had stayed healthy all year long. 33-yard touch. No! Oh, no. Keep an eye on Hansen's right foot right there. Oh. Stepped out of bounds at the 1. In fact, Cal had a bunch of plays. Would have been great highlights, and all of them, as you'll see, are out of bounds at the 1. So what do? Give it to your big back, 310-pound Malik McMorris. How'd you like to be 5'11", 310, John?
I'd love it, actually.
Actually, I think you're on the way. I think you're on the way.
I'm headed that way after this Thanksgiving.
19-7 Cal. Following the touchdown, Cal's kickoff was fumbled by UCLA return man Ainu Tawa, recovered by Coyote Dyke. And then on the ensuing drive, Webb is picked off by Nate Meters, and he is going to take it back to the house.
But hang on. Miscommunication there.
Hang on. Flag down. Coming back because of defensive holding. So Webb gets another chance. Where's Chad Hansen right here? Look at him float the ball out so nicely. It helps that Hansen is wide open. We're going to talk about...
Throws a beautiful deep ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, he really has such great touch. And that's the communication you're talking about right there, because Hansen looks back, he sees his quarterback is drifting out to the right, and then he takes off. And then we've got Jordan Duncan for a touchdown here. This turns into a rout. What's happened to UCLA? It's 29-10, fourth quarter. Faithful's throw, picked. Devontae Downs. Cal, their defense finally showed up in the last game of the season. 10 minutes left. 3rd and 9. And Webb is going to find Kalfani Mohammed. This is another, he might run a 4.38 40 as well. He's a track guy. It's only like 175 pounds, but runs with so much power.
Good little player.
Yeah. Then a couple plays later, Webb rolling out. Speaking of good little players, Bug Rivera, the touchdown. He's the nephew of Panthers head coach Ron Rivera. There's Ron right there.
In the house.
Yeah, because Carolina's playing the Niners tomorrow. Playing the Raiders, rather. And the final was 36-10 Bears. 10 points. Cal only allowed 10 points. Sonny Dykes gets his first win against a California-based Pac-12 team. Webb, 32 of 48, 301, 2 touchdowns. His favorite target, Hansen, 10 catches for $156. Mohammed over 100 yards. Cal 5-7. They've got a slim chance to go to a bowl game. Here's where clearly there's just too many bowl games.
Where you can't go to a bowl game in 5-7.
Well, no, you
Not
can.
In my world.
You can.
I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, well, we have too many bowl games. You want to go through the scenario as to how Cal can... I mean, it used to be, you used to go 7-5 and you go to a bowl game.
Or maybe you don't even get to go.
Or maybe you
not
don't.
Enough.
But now there's so many bowl games. I think so they need 80 teams.
Yeah.
And you may not have 80 teams with winning records, or even 6-6 teams. So there might be a couple of 5-7 teams that get a chance to go bowling.
All I know is this: clearly Sonny Dykes can coach the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
This entire recruiting class this offseason should be dedicated to defense.
Everybody playing
defense, and more defense. Because he can find these I'd never even heard of Davis Webb. He comes in, he's going to get drafted. Sonny Dykes has no problem coaching offense. Recruit some defensive players.
Well,
maybe they go 7-5 or 8-4.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries, so I'm sure they recruited defensive players, but a lot of them got hurt, and some of them, just didn't pan out. But they're going to need another quarterback because Davis Webb, he's a graduate transfer. College eligibility is used up. So where does Davis Webb rank? Because you look at this draft, there aren't
bad quarterback draft.
Yeah, you don't have franchise quarterbacks like we had, or we thought we had a year ago with Carson Wentz as well as Jared Goff, who we'll get to in a moment. So you tell me, Davis Webb, pluses, minuses.
Well, I mean, from a positive standpoint, like we hit on during the highlights, he throws a beautiful deep ball. He has good arm strength. If you look at him, I mean, I would imagine he's 6'5", approaching 6'6". Good athlete. And again, back to the arm. He can make all the throws. But I did watch him a lot of the times this year. Made a lot of bad decisions in key moments and through picks. And turnovers are bad when you're evaluating a quarterback. And I think if you look at the draft last year, Connor Cook and Dak Prescott, Connor Cook had won a lot of games at Michigan State, and Dak was a little bit of a polarizing prospect. Now, I know he's been phenomenal, but those guys were fourth-round picks. So if I'm looking at Davis Webb, who's had to transfer, couldn't beat out a guy at Texas Tech,
Pat Mahomes,
who's going to probably be a second or third round pick. I would say between fifth or sixth round and kind of groom him to be a backup type player. He should be on the roster next year, though, and probably dressing on game day, maybe as the third, and maybe if he's good enough in camp, you never know. Back to Dak Prescott, no one saw that coming. Connor Cook doesn't dress on game days, and Dak Prescott's taken the league by storm. So I would imagine fifth to sixth round, but if people fall in love with quarterbacks, and if you have a good workout, if you have a good combine workout, if he goes to the Senior Bowl in Mobile and plays well, you can never be shocked when a quarterback goes much higher than you thought.
Well, who heard of Carson Wentz?
Not me, till about last year at this time.
Okay, nobody knew. Nobody knew. I mean, at least Davis Webb has played against higher quality of competition. The thing that's hard to judge with these air raid quarterbacks, and Luke Falk is going to fall into this category as well, is how good are they? The stats are always going to be insane. John, you and I can run bear raid, air raid, whatever you want to call it. We'll throw for 300 or maybe 200, but you're throwing 50 passes a game, 180. The arm's not what it used to be. But how comparable is Webb to, say, Jared Goff, who up until a couple weeks ago couldn't get on the field with the Rams?
Well, I'll tell you this, Larry, and this is going to sound nuts because the guy was the #1 pick in the draft. I think if you just talk to some scouts, I don't think a lot of the league was as high on Jared Goff as maybe it seemed. That you could argue Davis Webb and Jared Goff's physical traits, size, arm, are pretty similar. Now, obviously, Jared's feet inside the pocket, I think people thought he kind of had a natural instinct to play with, when the pressure was around him, stepping up, just an innate feel for almost eyes in the back of his head, which you don't necessarily see with Davis. But I think people are going to kind of justify in their own mind that this guy can be something once we get him in our program and coach him up.
Yeah, again, the question is going to be shotgun quarterback, hasn't called plays, hasn't taken snaps.
Been in the spread his entire career.
So learning curve, all that stuff that Jared Goff has had to deal with. And
it's been hard.
And you know what? And that's what so many of these college quarterbacks, there's very few guys running pro-style offenses that are able to come in and make a quick transition because, they're looking over and the guys are holding the cue cards up. And
that's what people fell in love with Carson Wentz. He played in more of a traditional pro-style offense. And even Derek Carr, when you went back to his early time at Fresno State, they ran a power offense. So any time that you can say that you played under center, that's something that's dying in the world of football.
For sure.
Coaches and general managers look at that like a huge, that might be worth a round in itself. You might even have to go back to high school. I'm not sure where Davis played. I would imagine it was at a spread offense because a lot of these high schools run them now too.